Suzanne, there's something that I really want to discuss with you today. As your therapist, I wanted to bring this into the session because I've really been thinking about you in the last couple of days, and you've been on my mind, and I don't really know how to go about this, but I'm just really attracted to you. I wanted to bring this into the session because it's just on my mind constantly, and I'm really glad that you're here today.
You're kidding, right? Excuse me. I feel really awkward about that. Very awkward.
Well, actually, I'm not kidding.
You know, I feel really, you know, the whole reason why I came to see you was because I was having problems with men just, you know, taking advantage of me and just not getting very much respect from men, and I come to you and I bare my soul to you, and now you're going to tell me something like this.
That wasn't my intention. I think the reason I brought it into the session
Well,
was...
I mean, you're supposed to be a professional, and I think that there should be some kind of, you know, I don't know, I just think that you need to control whatever it is that you need to control. And, you know, if this kind of thing, if you can't handle it, then I think I need to see another counselor.
I think that maybe this is something that we could possibly work with.
How do you expect me to work with you like this when I know that you have these funky feelings?
What were your thoughts about that? How did you react to what the therapist did?
I really don't think a therapist should, you know, discuss that kind of feeling to a client, because...
That kind of feeling?
I mean, sexual attraction. So, because client coming to him with a lot of, you know, problem in her life to deal with, and that would make clients, you know, more confused, and I don't see how helpful that would be.
I could see that one kind of in two different ways. Like, the therapist did say that the reason that they introduced it was because they didn't want it to get in the way of the relationship, but yet I would have hoped that the therapist would have, you know, taken that somewhere else prior, either their supervision or their own therapy. So it was like, I could see why that they would possibly introduce it, but then once Suzanne's reaction, I wouldn't know what to do from there.
So several touch on that issue, that the therapist should maybe bring that up in with a colleague or in supervision and not introduce it to the client.
Say, for example, you've taken it into supervision and you've exhausted that possibility and talked about it with colleagues and you still feel that attraction. I mean, would that be a good time to refer? Should you refer?
You know, if I were working with you and I could not get beyond my attraction with you, I think I would have an obligation to refer you. I am there to pay attention to you and not me.
But you are paying attention to him.
But I'm paying attention in a way that's more paying attention to me. I am more paying attention to my feelings of attractions for him that keeps me from listening to Conrad. I am there to listen to him, and I'm being distracted by my own stuff. And I think when that gets in the way, not just with sexual attraction, with lots of other areas in our lives, I think that for me is a good guideline. If I'm getting in my own way of listening to you, I think there's something I need to do about that. And in this situation, I think I would need to refer you. Because I might even begin to be jealous of the fact that you start talking about your girlfriend. You know, how can I be objective about that? How can I be of help to you when you disclose how intimately involved with other people when maybe I have the desire to do that?
So it comes back again, counselor, know thyself. That's a crucial
And the other one it comes back to is counselor, know thy code and the law. And that is, I think, we're dealing with sexual attraction that could lead to sexual acting out. And I think the law is extremely specific that if thou shalt not have sex with your client.
In fact, some states prohibit sexual relationships between clients and counselors forever.
Ever.
It's not a 2-year period.
I think because the client is so vulnerable, and I think no matter what the client does, I always say, even if the client does every trick in the book on being sexually seductive, the therapist is the one who needs to keep the boundaries. And it's the therapist's job to make sure that the client does not get harmed in the process of being in a relationship with you, no matter what he or she is doing in terms of being seductive.
Sort of almost, some have called it professional incest. between therapist and client.
Right.
So it's always the responsibility of the professional.
It's the person in power that has the responsibility.
And by the way, this extends beyond the counselor-client. It used to be that the codes were very silent on sexual relationships between a clinical supervisor and a supervisee, or between a psychology educator or a counselor educator and a student. They used to kind of assume, well, isn't this a matter of consenting adults? But not so. Now the current codes, APA and ACA both, for example, explicitly state that sex between professor and student or between supervisor and supervisee are to be considered unethical. So you see, that's an example of how codes have evolved and gotten a lot more specific, because they tend to be reactionary, because still the number one reason for malpractice suits is sexual misconduct. And all you have to do is open your journal and you'll see the name of a therapist in there who's being successfully sued and brought an ethics charge for sexual misconduct.
And I think kind of listening to all of you, most of you, there was some sort of consensus that disclosing it to the client could be a real burden to that client, and there could be all kinds of repercussions, and one of them would be, for instance, if you had written it down in your records that it could come home to haunt you, as innocent as it may have been at the time, may have been put in a very different context.